I first heard about PrEP when I was sneaking into the gay bars. PrEP, it's not only for men, it's also for women. Anyone can get HIV. About 70% of the HIV positive diagnoses have come from people in monogamous relationships. I had to reassure the husband, I'm not here to take away your partner. I'm just here as an addition to bring even more happiness to your life and for y'all to bring happiness to my life. I hold the title of Mr. Hidden Door Leather. My culture is fucking beautiful, so I want to showcase it. My leather vest has a Mexican flag at the very top.
We're back for season 8 of the Confessions podcast, and this time it's the PrEP edition. HIV cases may be dropping overall, but not for the Latino community in the United States. Even though more people know about PrEP, too many are still missing out on this game-changing protection. This season isn't just about PrEP, it's about sex, sexuality, intimacy, and desire. We're talking sex, pleasure, identity, and everything in between, from kinks and fetishes to how PrEP fits into real people's lives. This is where the stories get raw, honest, and unapologetically hot. Whether you're curious, cautious, or already living your PrEP life, this season is for you. Turn up the volume, lean in close. Welcome to Confessions, the PrEP edition.
My name is Alex Torres. My pronouns are he, him, his. I am a gay male. I am 23 years old. So I'm a first generation Mexican American. Both of my parents immigrated to the US. I was born and raised in Houston, Texas. I grew up speaking Spanish. I didn't know a lick of English until I actually went to school. So up until about third grade is when I actually started switching over to all in English classes. So that's a little bit about my upbringing. I am the youngest of three. So I have an older brother and older sister. Our age gap is actually 12 years and 8 years. So I'm the baby of the family by a lot. I was an accident and they decided to keep me. So from my dad's side, we're the only ones in Houston. Everyone else is in McAllen and Mission. We still have probably over half of our family is still in Mexico, close to Monterrey. I first heard about PrEP when I was sneaking into the gay bars. I was about 18 years old, just sneaking into the bars with older daddies. I hit it off with one of them, and after hooking up with him, the next morning he asked me what my status was, and I actually had never been tested in my life. So he drove me to the nearest testing center and actually got me tested, and they talked to me about PrEP. That's when I learned about what PrEP was. Ooh, that day, I realized I was a horn dog and I wanted to have the freedom of sleeping around with whoever I wanted. So whenever they explained that PrEP was something that prevented HIV, and of course, you learn about HIV and AIDS or SIDA, and you hear it as such a negative thing growing up that hearing something about PrEP, I knew immediately it was something I needed to be on. In Houston at Legacy, it was extremely easy. I told the front desk, hey, I want to get on PrEP. And they actually connected me to a navigator. And so that navigator booked my walk-in appointment with my provider. So he walked me upstairs to my provider, finished my appointment with her, and he actually walked me down to labs to get my blood work and do my rapid HIV test. Once that came back negative, he walked me to the pharmacy to get my first prescription. And I really love that because if it wasn't for him, I would have immediately walked out of that clinic and not gotten tested or started PrEP. That day was my very first time getting tested, and I actually came back positive for syphilis. I'm pretty sure I had it for a while, and I had to get Bisolin, which is like a 3-week one. I regularly use DoxyPep. Whenever I travel to leather events, a lot of shenanigans go on, and I like to have fun. So I know the risk I'm taking, and I know I need to use Doxy. It first started, I want to say like middle school or high school. I was getting on YouTube and just watching various gay YouTubers, and I came across What's the Safe Word. They're like a kink fetish educational channel. They were reviewing some harnesses from Rough Trade Gear, which are out of LA. And so I decided whenever I was 16 and I was working, that was my first piece of leather I would buy. So I bought myself my first harness. And fast forward to when I was 18 and graduated from high school and I started sneaking into the gay bars, Ripcord was the very first bar in Houston that I snuck into. And it's very seedy, it's dark, there's red lighting, there's all these naked men on posters around, the TVs are playing soft porn. There's just leather guys everywhere. And I was like, damn, this is hot and this is something I wanted to be a part of. So I started walking around, go to the patio. There's a circle of men. There's someone on the ground in the middle. And I was very intrigued as to what was happening. And it was a leather club actually initiating one of their new members. So that's when I started talking to them to describe the leather community. I would use one word. I would use freedom. You have the freedom to be yourself. There's really no shame into what you're into. Everyone is very supportive, and it's a very inclusive community. It's not just male dominated. We have a lot of leather women, leather trans folk. I just love the community. I feel like taking PrEP and DoxyPep has made me feel more secure in the sex that I have. I'm able to have sex and not worry about I might have HIV after this interaction. And actually, after taking DoxyPep, I have not had an STI in over 2.5 years. There's more ease going into sex because if you go and pick up a guy at the bar, a lot of times you have to have the conversation like, what is your status? What are your safety measures? And sometimes with Doxy and PrEP, you can just go right into that sex without having that awkward conversation and you know you're protected. There are encounters that happen right away. You may be signaling each other to go to the restroom, so there's not really any time to discuss. PrEP and Doxy has given me confidence because not only does it make me look like I'm taking care of myself because I am going to the doctor every 3 months, it just gives me the confidence that I can go with whoever I want at any time and know that I'm protected. I work in the HIV field. Seeing so many patients come in and have the reaction they do to being positive has helped me stay on PrEP myself. Seeing what it can do to their confidence and seeing what it does to people sometimes, even though I try to reassure them as much as I can that this is not the end of their road, I hate seeing that. So that's what makes me stay on PrEP. I was taking Apretude. I was getting the injectable. So it was hard when I switched jobs and had new insurance. It was harder for me to get back on Apretude. So I did go back on oral. So I'm taking Descovy again. That's the only issues I've had. New insurance. Everything was really, really easy. I guess because I decided to go to a gay clinic where mostly everyone was on PrEP or living with HIV. So it was a very easy process for me to get on PrEP. I'm very blunt, so I would just say flat out, I am on PrEP and I get tested every 3 months. What is your situation? If that's in person. If it's over like an app or anything, it's usually listed on their app. But if I see that it's outdated, I will ask, are you drug and disease free, or are you undetectable, or are you on PrEP? What are your safety measures? That's usually what I ask. There's a lot of people that give pushback on apps because they just want to be careless and have sex with everyone without having any safety measures. And yeah, I get a lot of pushback sometimes. They're like, why does it matter? Just come and rail me. And I'm like, no, ma'am, no. I sometimes try to educate a little. I say why it's important. They should be getting tested and they should be taking these safety measures like getting on PrEP, or if they're HIV positive, becoming undetectable. I just straight up bring the conversation. And I also, whatever area I'm in, I will send the name of the nearest testing center. The stigma affects all of us. When I first got on PrEP, I was still living at home with my dad. And so when he saw my PrEP bottle, he immediately went to me being HIV positive, which threw him through a loop. And even till this day, even saying that I'm on PrEP or knowing that I'm on PrEP, to him, it seems like I'm living with HIV because he doesn't know the difference. So I still get that stigma from the family side. But out in the gay world, I mean, PrEP doesn't have a huge stigma. Sometimes it does because I have been in a monogamous relationship where I refused to stop taking my PrEP. And immediately I was called a hoe, or I was called a whore, that I'm sleeping around with everyone, when in reality I'm just taking that safety precaution for myself, even though it's a monogamous relationship. PrEP has that stigma of you're sleeping around with the entire town, that's why you have to take PrEP, which is not the case. It's just a safety measure. You never know when someone is going to step out of the relationship or you decide to open up the relationship, even if it's just one night, because that one night can change your status. So it's not necessarily a hoe taking PrEP. Anybody can take PrEP. Conversations with family, I mostly talk to my sister because my sister is my dad's favorite, so they talk a lot. But I've really opened my sister's mind about sexual health and also kink. I have gotten her into some kinks as well, but mostly with sexual health as to PrEP. It's not only for men, it's also for women. Anyone can get HIV, no matter your gender. So that's one way that I've destigmatized with family, educating her and hopefully having her educate my dad. So some things I hear the most about why people are not taking PrEP is because they're in a monogamous relationship or they don't have sex enough to be on PrEP. If you can't take a pill a day, you can take a shot in your butt every 2 months. And even if your insurance doesn't cover it, there are other ways you can get it covered. So that's one thing I always tell them. And with the monogamous relationship, I mean, I tell them about 70% of the HIV positive diagnoses that I've had in my testing career have come from people in monogamous relationships who they didn't know their partner had HIV the entire time because they never got tested or they stepped out of the relationship. So that's one of the main things I tell my friends. Even if they're in a monogamous relationship, you can get on PrEP. I actually just came out of a poly relationship. Being in a poly relationship has its own struggles, but communication is a very important one. Even if my partner has a husband, him and his husband do not play anymore, but me and him do. And we are both on PrEP. So just communicating about getting tested, how are our results? Do our results look the same? If they don't, do we need to both go get treatment or all three of us go get treatment? It just takes a lot of communication through that. Some poly struggles that come up a lot is jealousy. My partner and his husband have been together for over 25 years. So, me coming into a relationship, I had to reassure the husband, I'm not here to take away your partner. I'm just here as an addition to bring even more happiness to your life and for y'all to bring happiness to my life. There are some times when we have to talk about we need our date night and us two need our date night. And also, what are some events that we like to attend, but he does not? So how can we counter that and go enjoy something that the husband likes? So it's just balancing everyone's personality and likes. In my experience, in my other poly relationships, I had an ex-partner who was long distance half of the year. So half of the year they were up north, half of the other year they were down in Houston. And their first time being in Houston, they had to look for a new provider. So I brought them with me to my provider so they could get in health. And he also brought his husband with to also get tested and in care. So that was something easy for me just because I come off as a very carefree person. I don't judge anyone. So they didn't really care that I knew a lot about their health. I actually never got any stigma around my non-ethically monogamous relationship. All my providers understood how it was. And I also saw my healthcare providers as coworkers because I worked for that clinic. And if they ever had any questions about how the relationship was structured, they would come to me and ask me. So they knew where to come from with their care and what questions to ask. With providers, one of the biggest things I saw in their practice was, I guess, just using the word partners and not judging if someone had two long-term partners. And also asking if one of the partners was not involved in the sex that the two of you had. Because that's one of the biggest things that a lot of people question on. Well, if y'all are together, that means all three of y'all are having sex. Not necessarily, not all the time. Not every single partner is having sex with each other. So one of the things that brought me to Legacy and why I love the care that they provided is one, because they asked me if I was a verse, a bottom, a top, or if I was a side, which was a new question for me. I didn't think it really mattered, but now looking into it, it does kind of matter when it comes to your sexual health. And I love that they asked that question because they know what test you need. So a side is a new term for those who only like oral sex. So only sucking dick, only eating ass, only making out. Those are considered sides, those who do not prefer penetration. Some advice for those people that are not in ethically non-monogamous relationships getting sexual health care is just not giving up. If you go to a provider and they're not the most welcoming for you, don't give up. There is a provider out there that is willing to help you and willing to give you the care that you need. And maybe reach out to me. I can always find a provider that is good for you. The main thing I learned about myself in this journey is that I love educating people the way that I was educated that very first time at Legacy. The care that I was given was phenomenal and above and beyond, which is why I decided to pursue the career I did. So I guess it's kind of shaped me into the educator I am today. I've gone through almost every single position you can think of in a nonprofit sector, but at the moment, I am working at the Resource Center in Dallas as the empowerment coordinator for a new Latino empowerment group. So, if you're not familiar with the empowerment model, empowerment is for gay males ages 18 to 35, which is supposed to create community, have fun events, while also teaching about sexual health and reducing stigma around living with HIV and getting your sexual health that you need. So I was brought to Dallas to start a new program called GO. It stands for Grupo Orgullo Hispano, and it's going to be all in Spanish, the very first program in Dallas. And I am very excited. Legacy Community Health is in Houston. It was originally called the Montrose Clinic. It was what was helping all the people in the 80s through the AIDS epidemic. They're now up to about 30 clinics in Houston and Beaumont. That's where I got my start. I was working front desk, moved up to working as an eligibility specialist, being a testing coordinator, HIV prevention specialist. Just a great organization in Houston. I am fairly new to Dallas. I moved here about 2 months ago, so I have noticed a lot of hardships with Latinos here. It's not as diverse as Houston or LA. There's not a lot of us Latinos here in Dallas, so sometimes we are looked at different. And I've noticed that you're different and you're sticking out, especially in the area that I'm living in. Those are kind of the hardships I've experienced, just feeling like I don't belong. If someone out there is listening and they're unsure about getting on PrEP, just do it. At least go out and go to the healthcare provider's office and learn more. Even if you're not going to walk out with a prescription, at least you're going to walk out with a little bit more education on why you should be on PrEP and what PrEP is. Something that gives me hope in sexual health in our community is just being at leather events and walking by people and they're having the conversation about, well, what are your safety precautions? Or I am HIV positive undetectable. What about you? Just hearing those conversations walking by people just makes me so happy that we feel empowered to have these conversations out in the open or just bluntly without someone having to ask you. So some of the side effects being on PrEP, first with oral, the first week I did notice a little bit of a mild nausea, but once I started taking it with food and the longer you take it, you just don't feel it anymore. There's really no side effects after that. Being on Apretude, the injectable PrEP, I'm not gonna lie, it does hurt a little bit in your butt. You're gonna be sore for 2 days, but for the rest of the month and 3/4, you're fine. So if you can handle the little bit of soreness on your butt cheek for 2 days, I would say get on Apretude. When you first get on Apretude, you get injected every 30 days. So you get 2 doses every 30 days, and then after that, it's every 2 months. So every 60 days, you get injected. Since I don't take any other prescription or anything, I prefer the Apretude. Plus, I like showing my butt off to whatever clinician is injecting me. Go out and have sex and make sure it's safe for sex. That does not mean you have to wear a condom. It just means you have to take safety precautions. I use Instagram a lot to spread sexual health awareness, and also I hold the title of Mr. Hidden Door Leather, which is a bar here in Dallas. They're one of the only nonprofit bars, and I actually get to go represent them at International Mr. Leather. So I use that as my platform. Anytime I hold events at the Hidden Door or have a fundraiser, I always have a mobile testing unit with me. So we have free testing available for anyone that needs it. Leather contests are a big part of the leather community. It's how we elect our community leaders, per se. The leather gods are going to kill me, but I'm going to call it this. It's basically like a pageant, but it's leather. So you go through interview, you wear your sexy wear, jock on stage, you wear your formals, and you do bar wear, you do a pop question on stage. And my title, per se, is a community title. All their proceeds go back to charity, which is pretty cool. If more bars did that, we'd have a lot of money for our charities in communities. When winning your title, you are given the option to go compete for International Mr. Leather. It's held in Chicago every year, and there's about 70 contestants competing for the title. Because you're no longer just representing your community or your city, you're representing the entire leather community of the whole world. The way I got my start with these contests and how I learned about them was I had an ex-partner, ex-daddy, as I would say. He was competing for Mr. Third Coast Leather, which is a title down in Houston, which represents the Gulf Coast, the Gulf of Mexico, not the Gulf of America. And he was competing and he asked me to help him prepare. So I helped him prepare his application, his speech, and then weekend of, I was like his backstage person. So I was helping him get dressed, and I got to meet all the other contestants and all the other boys that were helping out. And I was like, this is interesting. You get to be recognized for the work that you do for the community, while also enjoying feeling empowered by wearing the leather and feeling sexy in your leather. I was like, this is something for me. So I started researching it and preparing. And a year and a half later, I decided to go compete and came out the winner. Mr. Hidden Door Leather, yes. So I first started off with a clothing drive. So I was still living in Houston. So we have a charity for our trans youth that have a closet called Tracy's Closet. And so they get a lot of donations for kids to come and get the clothes that they need to match their gender. Because sometimes the parents don't want to buy them those clothes or they can't afford it. So me and my title brother, Mr. Fire Dancer 2024, we actually held a drive all through Christmas, and we raised about 2,000 pieces of clothes for that organization. And then in January, I held a jockstrap auction, which raised about $4,500, and we gave that back to the Resource Center in Dallas. One of my friends owns a leather and kink store here in Texas called Surrat. Shout out Surrat Leather. They donated a lot of jock straps to me. I chose about 20 sexy models, and they actually wore them on stage while they got auctioned off. I am one of 68 contestants for International Mr. Leather 2025. So this is the 47th class of IML. 47 years of very rich history. You're mostly judged on your community work. So this isn't like who's the most prettiest, who's the sexiest. It's not really about that. It's about what you're contributing to your community and why you should be the leader of our community. The leather you bring on stage, most of the time you want it to be the most top-notch leather and something that represents you. So for me, I grew up very Mexican, so I wanted to show me on that stage. So I was ashamed of growing up as a first-generation Mexican American. In my adult life, I've really come to terms, my culture is fucking beautiful, so I want to showcase it. So the leather I'm wearing on stage is a full leather mariachi outfit. So every single thing is made out of leather, and it has all the botonadura down the legs and on the jacket. And then knowing your speech. So a big part of your prep is your speech. What is your platform and what speech are you going to give on stage? It's a 90-second speech. So just memorizing that and reciting it in front of 5,000 people. It's in a huge theater in Chicago. Memorial weekend. My leather vest has a Mexican flag at the very top. Thank you. Thank you.
This season, we talked more than just protection. We got into identity, intimacy, fetishes, and the real ways PrEP shows up in our daily lives. Because sexual health isn't just about prevention. It's about empowerment, connection, and owning your desires. Thank you for listening, for leaning in, and for daring to have these conversations with us. Season 8 was brought to you by the Los Angeles Family AIDS Network in collaboration with Reach LA. Be safe, stay sexy, and keep talking.